commuting with sirens and car horns. That was Aaron Glenwright Cook, who's a paramedic on strike in Doncaster. Let's return to Ukraine and the news that President Zelensky is visiting the US. It's his first foreign trip since Russia invaded in February. The US has been Ukraine's most important ally in the war, committing $50 billion or £41 billion of humanitarian, financial and security assistance, far more than any other country. But there are concerns of a growing opposition to continued funds, with some Republicans saying that Zelensky shouldn't count on a blank cheque. Joining us now in the studio to talk about this further is GOP advisor and foreign affairs analyst Daniel Berman. Daniel, thank you for joining us. A very important and symbolic visit by President Zelensky to the United States. Interesting, of course, he's chosen that as his first foreign trip since the war began. Why is there growing opposition to the support that the US is offering him?
So I think there's several aspects to it. There's always been, obviously, a sense of contrariness, and there's a need for an opposition party to define a clear position. But there's also been resentment that the Biden administration from the start has been perceived as trying to politicize this. There were efforts to suggest that Donald Trump was responsible for the invasion, that this was a vindication of policies. And there's also been a tendency to try and platform and promote anti-Ukraine views within the GOP to basically allow to make this a Democratic policy. And in a lot of ways, that's both alienated moderate Republicans who have supported the war in Ukraine. And it's also basically sent Republican voters a message that the most partisan and anti-Biden position you can adopt is skepticism of Ukraine aid.
Some Republicans, like Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, have said that not another penny will go to Ukraine. I mean, how literally should President Zelensky take a comment like that?
In that case, probably not, but he should pay more attention to Kevin McCarthy's remarks that without a degree of accountability, there won't be significantly more aid.
What does accountability look like then? From whom?
In this case, I think accountability means accepting an equal role for Congress in terms of where aid is going in the development of policy. I think one example of this is, for instance, something related to Zelensky's visit, which is Zelensky was not brought to Washington in the spring when Boris Johnson went over to Kiev and other leaders did. There were no real senior U.S. officials doing that. Now that Ukraine is perceived as a winner and the policy can be sold as a winner, Biden is bringing Zelensky to Washington. And I think that influences this, that is Zelensky there himself, or is he there as a prop for the Biden administration? This is one of the challenges Zelensky has, because he has to balance pleasing Biden, who decides what weapon systems he can get, but also making Republicans feel that he is an independent actor representing Ukraine rather than representing sort of a political tool of the Biden administration against them.
But given how much money has gone in to Ukraine from the United States and other countries, wouldn't it be short-sighted to not keep funding it to some extent? Because there is a risk, of course, that Russia will just come straight back and ride over all of the progress that Ukraine has made.
Absolutely. And I think that the vast majority of members of Congress agree with that. I think it's I think that that's not necessarily where it is. Now, there are significant questions which I think even Rishi Sunak shares, who's doing an audit of the spending, which is what exactly are we paying for in terms of an end goal? And I mean, that comes up in two ways. One, where's the money going transparently? Is there corruption issues? But it also means if we're fighting to get a border at the end of the day that's indefensible, that you have to do this every 10 years, then that actually may leave us worse off than we started. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of messaging from the administration as to what their actual war goals are. And I think they'd really love to hear that from the Ukrainian president.
Daniel Berman, Republican advisor and foreign affairs analyst. We'll see if they do. Thank you very much for joining us here.